exploration, firstly, of why go? I wanted to find out why other people have committed, exiled themselves into small boats alone on the surface of the open ocean. Among those of Western backgrounds, single-handed ocean sailing began in the late 1800s. Individual and collective motivations to cross an ocean alone have shifted over time as solo sailors responded to social, political, and environmental movements. And telling the history of human reasoning for doing this sort of thing requires a parade of wonderfully compelling and surprisingly different characters, who inevitably raise universal questions for all of us ashore about the choice of an adventure of any kind, about legacy, individualism, and the choice of solitude. Secondly, sailing alone is the story of what they saw. I wanted to know what other solo sailors observed out there in their small, slow boats so close to the surface, tracing their transects across the sea. Although their observations are inevitably anecdotal, and they as witnesses are not always reliable, single-handed sailors have provided useful glimpses into the changing global ocean, the most inaccessible, most unknown, yet most influential set of ecosystems on our planet. Sailors alone at single locations and times have recorded snapshots of the sea, for example, from under the shadow of a blue iceberg, or while skimming over a coral reef, or when gazing over the rail at night upon milky seas of bioluminescence. Solo sailors have described at different locations and times sailing through schools of flying squid, watching ribbons of thousands of shearwaters, or feeling the bumps of great white sharks rubbing their backs on the bottoms of their boats. The motivations of single-handed sailors and their previous reading shaped what they saw, felt, what they heard, what they smelled, tasted, and how they decided to write about the open ocean environment when they came home. The observations of these sailors, of seabirds, sharks, fish, turtles, and whales, have in turn influenced our cultural perceptions of groups of these animals, as well as more broadly in terms of our relationship with the ocean. Meanwhile, technological developments such as the marine engine, self-steering, photography, and GPS have in turn influenced the single-handed mariner's observations. Solo sailors stand as channel markers for our larger marine conservation movements, although their shift to environmental activism happened later than you might expect. Thirdly, this study, this history titled Sailing Alone, is about my own relatively minor voyage within those two terms of enquiry, the why go and the what they saw, which leads directly, physically, chronologically, and metaphorically, back to that singular moment when I rolled out of my bunk and climbed into the cockpit to the greatest shock of my life. I'm trying here to parse the facts and the meanings from what exactly happened on that windy, overcast afternoon in the Canary Current at approximately 1605 local time, when I stared up at that rumbling wall of red. Chapter 1. Anne Davison and the Meaning of Life. Anne Davison had been a pilot of small airplanes, lived on a small island on a lake, and then with her husband Frank bought an old boat to cruise the world. Aboard this vessel, after 2 years of devoted but incomplete restoration, they hurried outbound from England in May of 1949 to escape creditors. What followed was a nightmare of 2 weeks of sleepless days, engine trouble, relentlessly foul winds, and inexperienced navigation. They wrecked on the rocks of Portland Bill, an outcrop into a whirlpool of the English Channel.